They say we should have known better than to fall so deep down into this rabbit hole we found. And I was thinking...
Hi, this is Nikolai, and you're listening to My Dad Rafal, co-host James Jardian, and featuring Mr. Jim Tiller on the one and only Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Plug in, listen up, and enjoy.
Deep into this pool of regrettable situations. It's brought me back to the last time that we were
3, 2, 1. Hey folks, welcome to the Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast being recorded live and in person at Zero Trust World here in Orlando 2025. I thought I'd get a moment and sit down with somebody that's actually implementing some Zero Trust technology, some Zero Trust processes. It's early in the morning. And on that regard, I had them snag Ryan here, who's a practitioner, a professional. Tell us, Ryan, give me a quick intro of who you are and what you do. Yeah. Yes, all of those things.
I'm Ryan Benner. I work for a company called Garrett Callahan Company. I run all the IT operations, building security, phone systems. I guess if it gets powered on, it comes through my desk for whatever reason.
Is it? Do you have a separate security team, or just you're the IT people?
We're the IT people, security team, everything. So we kind of run it all.
Okay, tell me a little about this. So what does the company do? Because I'm not familiar.
So we do industrial water treatment. So think in terms of things like data centers, right? Data centers need a significant amount of cooling. We do a lot of that.
Okay.
We work in a lot of hospitals, so we deal with things like secondary infection, water reuse, things like that in hospitals. Okay. Cleanings, RO systems, and food washing. So we do some food washing and things like that. That are, kind of critical infrastructure for all of us.
Yeah, definitely. Interesting. All right, so look, you're at a Zero Trust conference. You obviously use some of the technology here. Talk to me about how you got, what in your mind got you to, I should be doing Zero Trust for my organization?
So I spent a lot of time within my organization talking about the need for security and understanding security, how we should be approaching it. And that it was never a matter of if, it was a matter of when we were to get hit. Okay. And about 2 years ago, we got hit by a ransomware. Black Hat Alpha V hit us.
Never pleasant.
It was a very trying week for me, but the way that I had things set up, we were able to recover in about a week.
Okay. Did it shut everything down?
Shut everything down, rebuilt everything from scratch. We actually, the greatest thing about it is we only lost maybe 40,000 photos of copper pipes. So we didn't lose data that was important. But it was just the having to rebuild everything from scratch again, wiping all the machines.
Oh man, that sounds painful.
Certain locations didn't wipe them and would turn them back on, and then it would
start over again. Oh, that's painful. That is arguably the worst.
Yeah, so it was. It took us a little bit, but that's why I went back to the owners and I said, guys, we can't do this anymore. Yeah. We have to leverage a better technology. The route that we were going is just not going to work. We have to invest more into it. We have to do a lot more with it. And that's why I started down that path.
Okay. So give me a sense of what the environment looks like, because that sounds like a whole bunch of internet IoT stuff in the mix. It sounds like
a little bit
primarily Windows based, like most offices.
We are, yeah. So we didn't have a whole lot of servers. We're primarily a Google house. So almost everything that we had was in Google. I had no real documents or data on the network. It was all stored in Google Cloud. So that made it very easy, right? Because Black Hat just ignored Google Drive right out the gate. I actually watched it. It was quite funny. Is we had some people testing Microsoft, and I actually watched it encrypt the files, and then copy them to Microsoft OneDrive. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Ingenuity of the attacker, right?
I was like, oh, okay. So that was kind of in real time. I'm sitting there watching. I'm going, oh,
that's
okay.
Good. That's both funny and slightly terrifying that they innovate that quickly.
Yeah, so it was like, all right, well, we're not going to use OneDrive. We'll stay where we're at. But so we're distributed because we have locations across the United States, manufacturing facilities. So we might have 10, 15 people in each one of those locations.
Okay.
And then our corporate office, which, 100 plus. But everybody else is kind of located outside as sales and service staff across the United States and the Caribbean and stuff like that. So it's very difficult to secure that many remote people.
That's fair.
So, after coming out of this and then dealing with all those things, we just had to, right? We kind of had to change our whole workflow.
Yeah. So I imagine it's a one department covers IT and security and pretty much everything together. I imagine it's not a huge staff. You don't have a security operations center. No. You don't have 20 people sitting in a SOC staring at screens.
No.
Right.
We're not necessarily a small company anymore. We about 450 employees, with 300 of them are located across the U.S.
Okay.
And then our offices. So, I've got 4 IT staff, about 14 software developers that we use for, integration pieces and applications that we use in the water treatment industry. And really no major cybersecurity. We kind of relied on a third-party vendor here or a third-party vendor there. Yeah. And the ones that we relied on just failed. Yeah,
that seems so. It makes sense, right? You're small enough where you can depend on a partner. And I've been talking about this for a long time, and that is that the way that we've done managed service providers over the last 20 or so years, it just didn't produce the results that people like you were hoping for.
I'm very hesitant to work with one because every one that I have used, it takes me a shorter amount of time to get
to do it
understanding
yourself?
And just do it myself than it is to even schedule their people to come in and do it. We just replace all our firewalls and our wireless, and we ended up just doing it ourselves because the MSP that we couldn't accomplish the job. I'm like, really?
Yeah. There's a set of unique challenges when you're in, I guess, that size of a company where you're not necessarily 5 people in a single location, but you're not 10,000 people across, in a multinational. There's like this between 1,000 and say 300, right? There's like that middle ground where it's you have all the big problems that big companies have, but none of the budget and headcounts.
Well, it's the budget and the headcount, but it's also the vendors. Don't want to look at us as like a viable company because we're not going to increase their profits enough.
That's right. So I was going to touch that. What the hell? I've hit the third rail right off the gate here. So, but look, a lot of this industry, a lot of cybersecurity is, if you look at the major players, very few of them are interested in companies down market like yourself. Yeah. There's just not the profit in it for them. Mm-hmm. And so you're right. You're stuck either DIY or in a lot of cases that I've seen, you're just sort of like, okay, well, let's see what happens.
And it really is, it's kind of like, well, let's hope that doesn't happen. I did a big presentation at our sales meeting just before we got hit, probably about 6 months before we got hit. And I was talking heavily because I'd done some dark web scans to see what of our email addresses were out there. And I'm trying to explain this to our sales and service staff. And the first thing that they did is they ran to the owner and said, Ryan knows too much about us. He's playing too much Big Brother. He's able to, do that. And I'm like, I just told you guys that something bad's going to happen.
And as if you had known the future, right?
Yeah.
I know, your shocked face. Oh.
Like, okay, 6 months later, every one of those people that wouldn't complain now came back to me and goes, we should have listened to you a little bit more. Yeah. You're like, well...
Oh, look, I can't do anything. I can't make... Because if you're offline, you don't make money. You can't sell, you can't support, you can't do anything for your customers. And I imagine they're calling you going, hey, what's happening? Why are you down?
Exactly. and it was that rebuild, and that's where it got.
So that gives you an opportunity to kind of, if you have to rebuild, you might as well take the chance to take a second, pause, right?
And that's what we did. I just go, you know what? Let's kind of wipe it out. We removed out any residual servers that we had in the building.
Okay.
I flattened my network out from all the switching, because I'm going to redo all of that here pretty soon anyways. And then we just started throwing in as much Zero Trust as we possibly can.
Okay.
And just as it's accumulated up, we just keep adding in all the new features and building it.
So Zero Trust, I mean, I know what it means. I know the definition, right? Minimum use, all that stuff, least privilege, enable only, that kind of thing. But in an organization like you've got the cloud, all your Gmail and Drive and all that stuff. You've got developers on site. You've got some probably a significant amount of IoT that's floating around in your environment, and that you're at your customer spaces. How do you get your head around that and go, all right, Zero Trust is the way to go? Like, was there a white paper you read, or did the as we call it, the angel of knowledge just kind of wham?
It was kind of more like the angel of threat locker hitting me in the head. I had looked. I immediately ripped out our previous EDR.
Okay,
because they just completely failed.
Didn't work.
Yeah, and the sad thing was like 3 months before, we had a meeting with them to make sure we were following their best practices.
Okay,
and something got unchecked that allowed them to get through, and they were able to laterally move and do this. And I went back and said, why did this get unchecked? Nobody could tell me why. And my issue was it got unchecked, but it made it a policy on every single device in the
that's
server.
Interesting. Okay.
And that to me doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Right. And so when I happened to be at a conference and I started looking at some of the Zero Trust stuff and talking with some friends and other IT people, how are you guys addressing this? What are you doing? And it's always across the board. Everybody goes, well, you have to have an MDR. You need to use, this company or that company.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, but why? What are they going to do different than, this other one?
It does all start to sound very similar because people will tell you got to cover your network, you got to cover your endpoints, you have to have some sort of analytics and mechanization. So source SIM, some network NDR, EDR, and then an EDR, and okay, that's good. Plus some perimeter firewalls, and all right, and you're good, at least at the basics. And then it doesn't always work out so well.
No, and that's where XDR has been the latest one that I heard.
I've heard a lot of XDR.
It's like, okay, so how is this any different? You're going to come up with another acronym for the same thing that we're already doing.
That's right.
And there's that saying: if you keep doing what you've always done, you keep getting what you've always gotten.
I believe Einstein's definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
Yeah, and that was the whole thing. I go, we just have to do something different. It's not going to work. And, we work in an environment that, when we go down and we don't have access to stuff and we can't monitor things, what happens in a hospital, right?
I don't imagine that's not a great place.
Or we're not monitoring what's going there. And so we have to look at things. I have to look at things this big. All right,
it's more than just we're down. Yeah. It's you're causing a significant impact. Hospital seems like a pretty bad worst case.
Yeah, especially after COVID hit, right? Once COVID hit and you have the secondary infection and, Legionnaire's disease is bad enough and you toss COVID on top of it. The ACA, it's a recipe for disaster.
How much regulation do you have to deal with in all these different places you do business in? Is there a lot of checkbox kind of, you have to do this, thou shalt do these types of regulations?
Yeah, almost every time that we are getting ready to onboard a new customer.
High trust in healthcare, right?
Yeah, I get the questionnaires.
Okay.
I have to sit there and, we just onboarded this new one and it was 350 questions about our disaster recovery, about our cybersecurity, and everything. That's kind of went through it all. And your eyes start to cross as you're doing it. The regulations themselves, we're still waiting for what's going to really happen with CMMC as it relates to the CUI of water treatment data. They're probably going to classify it at some point. And when they do, then that's going to be another thing that we're going to have to do.
I mean, critical infrastructure is, it keeps expanding, but I suspect water is one of those things. I mean, you're not a water treatment plant, but
we do it on the industrial side.
Yeah, that feels important. All right, so talk to me about. I mean, you decided, all right, we're going to do zero trust. I don't imagine everybody was like, "Yay, Ryan, let's go do it." What was that like?
So, I'd gone back, to the president and the owner, him and his brother. They own the company, and I said, "Look, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to approach this. Let's shut everything down, and then we'll allow stuff in slowly on what we need, because I think it becomes hard to see everything at the top, right?
Yeah.
Because we have such a distributed network.
Yeah.
I don't know what person down in Florida is doing compared to somebody up in Chicago or so
they operate fairly autonomously, but within parameters, right?
Yeah. And I was never one to really stop people from working how they want to work.
Yeah.
Especially in our environment. If you start really saying, okay, being so strict on everything that you do, you then don't allow them to work how they're comfortable, and so productivity will drop.
Yeah, and security gets sidelined real fast when productivity takes a dip. All right, so that's an interesting place to pull on. So how did you keep productivity from going in the toilet?
So the first thing that we did is we spent about a year and a half with using the Zero Trust, using the Threat Locker application, and we had it running just for our internal offices solely. We didn't roll it out to our distributed sales and service staff.
Okay.
And we just wanted to kind of see what environment was going on, what applications people were using. I think our biggest area that I had was the developers, because they're constantly writing new DLLs.
Yeah, they're doing something new all day long. Yeah.
And the head of my software development team called me one Saturday afternoon. It was probably about 3 weeks ago, saying, "I hate this damn application. Get it off of here. I can't do it." I go, "Bob, I got you. Hold on. Give me a second." But that was the hardest. But once we knew, then we could start creating. And it goes back to working with Threat Locker, right?
Yeah.
Nathan over there was really good. We would meet with him every couple of weeks, and he would help us fine-tune everything. And so, fast forward a year and a half, we threw this onto our entire sales staff, and one shot, and no issues whatsoever. Everything just went so smooth, so easy.
How much did you hold your breath, though?
I was like, oh boy.
Fucker factor, right? Like, oh man, here goes. You're staring at that button. You're like, go.
So I closed my eyes, said about 20 Hail Marys,
and off we go. Yeah. It's got to be interesting, because I think the inclination for so many years, we had so many of our tools, security tools, in monitor only mode. And it was like when the WAF came out, with application firewalls, when IDS before, it could do IPS. We're like, detect only. I don't want to break anything. It's hard to put in security tools that actually stop behavior.
Yeah.
Because there's always that fear hanging over you. At least I think that somebody's going to come in that's outranks you and says, "I can't do my work. This thing has to go."
Mm-hmm. That happens all the time. I hear it from friends in the industry. I hear it, all over. I'm lucky I really don't have that, big of a problem, but I do have, some people that get upset about some of the things that we do. And, I just try to explain to them, well, I can do this, but now you're at risk for this and this, and give them what the consequences are. Most of them go, okay, I understand your consequences. But for the most part, they really operate, and they don't even know what's happening. They don't know what's going on the back end. We'll get. I run an EDR application as well as the Threat Locker application, and I'm going to pull out the EDR application. I never get any reports from it at all. I mean, everything is stopped before it gets it.
That's super interesting. It's telling.
Yeah. So
right? It's telling.
We see it stop. The people at Threat Locker are really quick. If there's something that they don't quite understand that might be specific to our industry, an application or something, they go, "Hey, what is this?"
That is an interesting thing, because that's an interesting point you bring up, because there's so many security tools that if you're trying to do allow listing only, there are ports, protocols, the way things behave, they're different from industry to industry. In finance, you've got things that run in batch processes still. In healthcare, there are things that still, from the times of dinosaurs, I jokingly, some Windows XP still floating around. So we
have those too.
I was going to say, yeah, everybody does. And you have to accommodate that. And so it seems like you figured that out, which is kind of awesome.
It was, like I said, it was a year and a half. Yeah. It was a year and a half of understanding the application and really digging into it and working closely with them.
Yeah.
And that's how we were able to accomplish it. And we've had very little pain. We do see some stuff where we get people escalating, or, we'll have people that'll try and access our internal resources with a personal machine, and we'll say, all right, only if you put this on there.
Yeah.
And then we start getting the notices, and they go, well, this is my personal machine. I go, well, if you want access to internal resources, this is a requirement.
That's a battle, though. I see, because there's so many. I can do about 80% of my job from any computer you give me, right? It's all web-based stuff. A lot of people more businesses are getting to that model. It's not, we use the days of like sitting with a file server over there and your Exchange email server over there. Like those are gone. We're leveraging cloud, SaaS, all these different things. And it's interesting how you're navigating the world of, I brought my own laptop. Why can't I just use this?
Yeah, I think that's the hardest thing with our sales and service. But again, what I love about my company is they are very big on providing high quality equipment to their employees, whether it's an iPhone, Android phone, Windows. We're getting ready to roll out Macs to people who want those now too. So they're able to do this, and it's use these applications, use these systems, so that we don't have a whole lot of them using personal stuff anymore.
Okay. So, well, sounds like you've been relatively successful in the last year and a half. Any lessons learned to come out of this as we close off?
I think patience, patience and trust. I think it really came down to, I had, bad experiences and stuff. So
so you've hinted.
Yeah. So it came down to really trusting what ThreatLocker could provide and their process, and it worked, and it works. I mean, it was very easy. They made the whole process easy.
Okay.
And even now, we've been with them for a couple of years, and we still meet regularly with their team and go through everything.
That's awesome.
So that's how it works.
Well, thanks for taking some time, Ryan. Appreciate you. Folks, thanks for listening. I hope you got something out of it. This has been a very interesting conversation. Usually, you hear the large enterprises adopting massive technologies, but no, I don't think we talk about the small, medium-sized businesses enough, because they make up such a huge chunk of the industry, and there's such a important part of the supply chain, the support chain of industry, of everything else. So thanks for listening. I'll catch you guys another time, another place, on another Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Ciao.
This is Bella. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to leave my dad a review and share this with your friends. Bye.